This video is brought to you by Cubamajigs, a series of reusable gaming packs for MTG Cube sideboards and other games like Keyforge. Check them out at Cubamajigs.com with new designs every Monday. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another instant deck tech. Just when we thought the deck was dead, with the banning of Krark-Clan Ironworks, Eggs is back. Semblance Eggs, Semblance Anvil, basically replacing Krark-Clan Ironworks and making probably the most obnoxious deck in Modern a thing again. It took C. Newman to a 5-0 finish in a competitive Modern League on Magic Online. So even though I absolutely hate playing against Eggs, I figure we should probably talk about it because you're probably going to be running into it. And you're probably not going to expect it because with the KCI banning, like me, you're probably thinking, all right, we're safe. That's done with. There's a lot of unfair things in Modern, but at least I don't got to worry about getting janked out by Eggs. Apparently that's not true after all. So a quick reminder before we break down Semblance Eggs for Modern. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So, Semblance Eggs is basically a reworking of the Krark-Clan Ironworks combo deck. So you probably remember this deck. It was one of the better decks in Modern, definitely one of the most annoying decks in Modern. Basically, you play a bunch of cheap artifacts that cantrip, you sacrifice them to generate a bunch of mana, you combo off and win the game. Well, KCI itself was banned. However, cunning Modern players have figured out a way to make it work anyway with the help of Semblance Anvil. So Semblance Anvil is kind of like a Krark-Clan Ironworks. Comes into play, you got to exile a non-land card from your hand if you choose to, and then spells that share a type with that card cost 2 less to cast. So essentially, it's basically very similar to Krark-Clan Ironworks. If we exile an artifact from our hand, all of our artifacts cost 2 less. So instead of sacking an artifact to make 2 mana, we're just able to cast everything for cheaper. Or actually in this deck, I think almost everything is free once we have Semblance Anvil exiling an artifact. So that's kind of the engine of the deck. And in some ways, Semblance Anvil is even better. It's only 3 mana. That's the one upside. The downside is you do have to exile a card from your hand. If it gets blown up, you get 2 for 1, etc., etc., etc. However, the Eggs deck wants to be able to sacrifice its artifacts. That's kind of where the combo comes in. So to really make Semblance Anvil into a KCI, we need that sacrifice effect as well. So for this, we turn to Grinding Station. And Grinding Station is actually really absurd in this deck. Not only does it give us a way to sacrifice our artifacts for value, and remember we're casting them for free because we have Semblance Anvil, it also mills for 3 whenever we sacrifice an artifact. And then when an artifact comes into play, we get to untap it. So not only is this an engine piece to let us sack our artifacts to get them back from our graveyard, similar to KCI, it's also our main finisher. And the way we can close out the game with this deck is actually pretty simple. We have Scrap Trawler and Mirror Retriever, and you probably remember these cards from KCI proper. So on one hand, we can do similar loops to the KCI deck, where we get down our Scrap Trawler, we use our Grinding Station to sacrifice a random artifact to get a cheap artifact back from our graveyard, and then we sacrifice that one by untapping our Grinding Station when the artifact comes into play to do it again, just loop through our deck, mill. Mirror Retriever also gets back artifacts from our graveyard, so works well with the loop. But this deck, it has a very simple, even more deterministic win than the old KCI deck had, which means if we get down to Semblance Anvil and we find our 2 Mirror Retrievers, along with the Grinding Station, we just get to mill our opponent out of the game altogether. We sacrifice Mirror Retriever to get back Mirror Retriever, we cast it for free because Semblance Anvil, then we untap our Grinding Station, we cast the free Mirror Retriever to sack Mirror Retriever, get back Mirror Retriever. The other trick with this deck is we can use Grinding Station in the early game to mill ourselves to get Mirror Retrievers in the graveyard, and then we can use whatever, our Scrap Trawler or Mirror Retriever to get back a copy, so it kind of draws us into our combo, and then we just win the game and mill our opponent out. Simple, straightforward, easy breezy. So that's kind of the main plan of the deck. Otherwise, we have a lot of the same loops and card draw effects as the old KCI deck. Ichor Wellspring, gonna be free to draw us 2 cards, also mill some cards as we're sacrificing it, getting back from our graveyard. One of the engine pieces that just draws us through the deck as we have our Scrap Trawler out and we sacrifice and redraw a card, and then we get it back by sacrificing something else to draw more cards, turn through our deck really quickly. And then in the 1-drop slot, if we sacrifice our 2 drops, we can get back a Terrarion or Chromatic Star. And both of these cards are pretty sweet because they draw us a card whenever they go to the graveyard. So this means we don't actually have to activate them to draw a card. So we can cast them for free with our Semblance Anvil out, sack them to draw a card, so they're essentially just free draw ones to keep us drawing through our deck, finding that infinite mill combo we were talking about. And then in the 0-drop slot, the last end of the Scrap Trawler chain, Mox Opal gives us mana with the early game, helps us speed into our Semblance Anvil or other combo pieces, and the drawback of being legendary, not really a drawback when you're playing Semblance Anvil, really easy thing to exile to our Semblance Anvil to get that chain started. Welding Jar protects our Semblance Anvil or other pieces. Engineered Explosives helps get rid of Graveyard Hate, other cards that can disrupt our plan. Darksteel Citadel gives us a land that also works with our artifact synergies. As far as our backup plan, if our opponent has a way to disrupt our combo, Graveyard Hate, or even a Stony Silence, we have Sai, Master Thopterus, and Pyrite Spellbomb. So Sai, as we're casting all these artifacts, getting them back, casting them, getting them back, casting them, getting back, makes a ton of Thopters. If we go through that same loop with our Mirror Retrievers and our Grinding Station, we make infinite Thopters. So if our opponent happens to have, let's say, Nexus of Fate, or an Eldrazi that keeps shuffling the deck back in, we don't actually have to win by mill. We can just make an infinite number of Thopters. Our opponent's deck keeps shuffling in, sure, whatever, we don't care. Then we just beat our opponent down with the Thopters. And then we can also win by looping Pyrite Spellbomb. It's pretty slow, but we can get it back, sack it, deal 2 damage, get it back, sack it, deal 2 damage. So another backup plan if we can't win the game for some reason with our main mill win condition. Otherwise, Ancient Stirrings churns through our deck, finds our pieces. Probably the reason this deck exists, honestly, is Ancient Stirrings. And then Inventor's Fair, a backup tutoring effect in the mana base. The life gain could be relevant in some matchups. As for the rest of the mana base, we talked about Darksteel Citadel, kind of a combo piece as an artifact. Inventor's Fair is a tutor. Buried Ruin, another way to get back artifacts from our graveyard. Grove of the Burn Willows, Yavimaya Coast for mana fixing. Some basic lands to play around Blood Moon. Sideboard-wise, we got a bunch of ways to beat the hate, essentially. So the biggest downside of artifact-based combo decks is you lose to Stony Silence. This deck also kind of scoops to Graveyard Hate for the most part. So in those cases, we have a bunch of ways to win the game that just avoids those hate cards that most decks are going to bring in. Karn Sign of Urza just makes massive Karn Destructs to kill our opponent that way. Gerber Ether Grid allows us to tap our artifacts for damage, even with a Stony Silence out. Another Sai to back up the ones in the main deck to go wide with Thopters. Negate and Swan Song protect our pieces. Nature's Claim, a way to get rid of hate cards. Stony Silence, Rest in Peace, Leyline of the Void. Galvanic Blast if we need to remove a creature. And that is Semblance Eggs for Modern. And that's our instant deck tech for today. So KCI is back, even without KCI itself. Hopefully this deck doesn't actually catch on in Modern, because I was breathing a sigh of relief that KCI was gone, and apparently I breathed that sigh a bit too early. So anyway, that's the deck. That's been our instant deck tech for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.